Let's begin our series of reports with the snow conditions and traffic conditions at this hour throughout the area. First to Mary Croneke in Silver Spring. Mary?
Chris, I am standing in a very quiet residential neighborhood called Rosemary Hills. It is especially quiet tonight because there's no traffic moving. There are very few people moving. This street has not seen a snowplow in a long time. You can see those cars are totally buried back there. It's going to take residents a while to get those dug out. And then the real adventure begins. I have some tape I want to show you what it's like when you get to the streets that have been plowed, or at least partially plowed. Here's what it looks like on the major streets. The snow is so deep, many roads, especially hills, are impassable. The plows have been through on major streets, but it's just too big a job. Most people are walking where they have to go. Even on main roads, there are as many people in the streets as cars. Grocery stores were very busy today, people buying whatever they could carry when they could find a store open. But other businesses suffered. This Wheaton bar is usually packed on Friday afternoons. Not today. They closed early also. Montgomery County Police are telling people that if they have abandoned vehicles that are in the way of plows or emergency vehicles, they will be towed. The state police is telling people who are stranded to get out of their cars and phone for help. Prince George's County Police say if you are stranded, get to the nearest shelter and ask for help. They are also asking local churches to open their door to stranded motorists, and there are a lot of them tonight. If you don't have to drive out in this, don't. I'm not even sure you could. Robin?
Thank you, Mary. You are seeing what it looks like on Connecticut Avenue Northwest at this time of night. There's a bit of an old-fashioned look to it, I have to admit. People are out walking. In Washington, D.C., I will venture that you do not see people out walking and actually going for a walk for the fun of it. And that's what people are doing on this evening when snow has virtually shut the nation's capital down. Let's go now to Springfield, Virginia, where Jim Clark is standing by live, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the conditions out there. As you know, the conditions have been different in different areas of this area. Springfield, Virginia, for example, is getting quite a bit more snow than the nation's capital is. Let's go now to Jim Clark to tell us exactly how things operated out in Virginia today. Jim?
Robin, in a word, conditions here are rotten, R-O-T-T-E-N. We're reporting to you from high atop the Holiday Inn in Springfield, Virginia. Behind me, and I hope you can see it because it has begun to snow a bit harder here in the last half hour. Behind me, Franconia Road and the southbound lanes of I-95. And coming up now, approaching Franconia Road, a couple of fire engines. In case you can hear sirens behind me, that's what it's all about. Also behind me, the cloverleaf leading off the southbound lanes of I-95. I've been watching I-95 carefully for the last 30 minutes. We've had very, very little traffic going down that road. And as you perhaps can see from the headlights of some of the cars, there are half a dozen cars stranded in that exit. There's a slight hill to get up onto Franconia Road. Earlier today, we toured a large part of the major thoroughfares in Northern Virginia in a four-wheel drive truck. And we found conditions were growing rapidly from bad to worse. The big problem, of course, was the snowplows simply were not able to keep up. On I-95 South, should be advised the Red Cross is setting up an emergency shelter in Woodbridge, Virginia. We're told I-95 South is closed, but we still see an occasional car going down that road. Perhaps they are emergency vehicles. The best advice, stay off the roads, stay home. That's the situation here in Springfield. This is Jim Clark. Robin, Chris?
Jim, thank you very much. And just to follow up on what you said, that emergency shelters at the Owl Fire Department, the bot station a mile and a half off 95 at Occoquan Road and F Street in downtown Woodbridge. Also, there are temporary shelters throughout the area. You should call the local police if you'd like to know the one closest to you. All of this snow is causing closings and cancellations tonight, and also closings, cancellations, postponements, and delays of many of tomorrow's events as well. Tonight, the Washington Capitals hockey matchup at the Cap Center has been postponed, and the telescreen showing of the Marvin Hagler boxing match has been canceled. Now, the National Symphony Orchestra will not be playing at the Kennedy Center tonight as had been scheduled. If you have tickets, contact the ticket office Monday. Many religious services, meetings, and concerts have been postponed, delayed, or canceled. If you were planning to be somewhere, check by phone to make sure your event hasn't already been canceled. Could save you a trip out in the snow. Animal lovers, remind you pets should be brought indoors. And for those who are stranded after abandoning vehicles, best advice, call police. They may be recommending temporary shelters. In some areas, cars will be ticketed or towed if they block snow clearing operations. When we come back on this evening's edition of 5:30 Live, we'll have more news of one of the worst storms of the century here in Washington.
Chris, we'll also have some advice about how you can avoid becoming a victim of this severe winter storm, so stay with us.
Robin?
Chris, what you are seeing is a scene that will be common in our area over the next 48 hours, I suspect. People shoveling the snow. Now, you may know that that can be dangerous. Hospitals in our area stayed busy answering calls from people who fell in the snow and fractured their bones, and also from others who suffered heart attacks when they shoveled the snow or tried to push a car out of a snowdrift. Now, Suburban Hospital in Montgomery County, Maryland, was open and maintaining a full staff in most of its specialties. Emergency room doctor Kenneth Philbrook has some tips about how to avoid becoming a patient.
Well, basically use your common sense and don't do something more strenuous than you would normally, and particularly people that are going to be outside, such as joggers, who I'm sure will be out there running like they always do. Take it easy, dress warm, and be aware that this is a very stressful situation today that we're having here in Washington. If you have a healthy heart, generally nothing will happen. However, none of us basically know whether we do or not, and therefore we must use our common sense into what activities we do and the stress we give into it. I advise just stay in, and there's no football this weekend, but maybe you can watch replays of the NFL.
I'll tell you, if there's a jogger out running, I would like to see that person. By the way, Suburban Hospital is looking for volunteers with four-wheel drive vehicles who can help keep bringing doctors and nurses to and from the hospital so they can meet their shifts. If you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, call 530-2500 for Suburban Hospital. Or if you live in another part of our area, you should call one of your local hospitals if you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, because all of them need to help deliver and pick up kidney dialysis patients, for example, as well as doctors who have emergency calls. Well, coming up, I'm going to be talking with Alan Eustace, and we are going to get some perspective on this storm, find out, is it the biggest storm of the century, and if so, how big was the last storm? So stay with us as we continue tonight.
And also coming up, we'll find out just how this storm compares to previous blizzards in the Washington area. Stay tuned.
Out here on Connecticut Avenue, I am now joined by News 7's Alan Eustace, who not only is a meteorologist, but also an historian and a statistician. He collects statistics about storms.
Actually, people have done it long before I have. But everybody has their favorite snowstorm. It's a little bit like baseball and football statistics. You can make the biggest snowstorm out of whatever way you want to make out a big snowstorm.
Tell us about some previous storms in the Washington area that compare with this.
One of the worst ones was the one that a lot of people remember even if they weren't around, the 1922 snowstorm in February 27th, 28, when about 25 inches of snow fell on the Knickerbocker Theater, and the roof fell in. It was a very wet snow, unlike this dry snow, and it killed almost 100 people. Now, we may get close to that 25-inch snowstorm. I don't think we'll have anywhere near the damage. We've already beaten the 1936 snowstorm and 1958 snowstorm, which were two of the worst in the century when they only had 14.4 inches in 24 hours.
This is sort of like beating Babe Ruth's record. Is that what you're saying?
I think two storms we will not equal, although Gary would have to, I think, back me up on this, is the 1772 snowstorm. 36 inches fell, and that was in both Jefferson and Washington's diaries on that one.
And they were locked in their homes. They weren't able to get out. Is that right?
That's right. It was a lot more severe than this, I guess. And February 14th, 1889, 34 inches of snow fell in this area. Some areas will get to 30 inches. So whether we do or not here, I don't think we will in the district itself. People will remember this as one of the worst snowstorms that they've ever lived through. But
as storms go, it's actually relatively moderate. Thanks for being with us tonight, Alan. You can go in and get warm. It's just about time for me to do that. Chris, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I am now, Robin, and I'll be right alongside of you by the magic. There you go, magic of TV. Tim Brandt will be along at the 6 o'clock news hour with sports. We had extended coverage of the snow. Tonight in Reston, a minister will marry a couple by phone because the people can't get to the church. A new way to reach out and touch someone.
Get me to the church on time, right?
I hope so, or by phone. I'm Chris Gordon.
And I'm Robin Chapman. News 7 at 6 is next. I hope you'll stay tuned.
One of the worst winter storms of the century slammed into the Washington area today, paralyzing the nation's capital and burying neighboring Virginia and Maryland under tons of blowing and drifting snow.
This is News 7, the 6 o'clock report, with Renee Poussaint and David Shoemaker. Gary Shore with the weather, Tim Brandt on sports, and Paul Berry with 7 on your side.
Coming up on News 7 Update, Washington is buried under the second worst snowstorm in the city's history. Gary Shore will tell us what we can expect next.
Jack Kennedy reports on how people are coping with the storm tonight. And in sports, Tim Brandt will be reporting on tonight's middleweight championship fight. I'm David Shoemaker.
I'm Renee Poussaint. News 7 Update is next.
This is the News 7 update with David Shoemaker and Renee Poussaint. Gary Shore with the weather, Tim Brandt on sports, and tonight, Paul Berry with 7 on your side.
Good evening. The nation's capital is virtually shut down tonight.
The streets are empty if you don't count the abandoned automobiles. Only a few flakes still in the air from what turns out to be the second biggest snowstorm of the century. And now this city, which usually has enough trouble coping with a light dusting, must dig out from almost 2 feet of snow. Metro Rail already has thrown in the towel. There'll be no subway service tomorrow. Renee?
The only people able to get around tonight are those with four-wheel drive vehicles, so we sent Jack Kennedy and a crew out in a Jeep to find out how people are coping with being snowed in, and he is standing
The city tonight has not improved dramatically. As you said, if you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle, the streets are still virtually impassable. And in fact, there were many more people walking and skiing tonight than driving. Most Washingtonians stayed home, but we went out in a Jeep to take a look at what the city looked like in the snow. The streets are still littered with abandoned vehicles, cars and buses that weren't up to the blizzard of '83. Main arteries downtown are getting heavy attention from road crews tonight, and at least 2 lanes on the 14th Street Bridge were open, although they still have a snow base that would warm the heart of any ski resort operator. Most of the side streets are a different story. They are, in fact, impassable. The plows and dump trucks were busy at National Airport tonight, too. The airport is closed, of course, but the FAA will make a decision at 7 tomorrow morning on Saturday's flights. At the Twin Bridges Marriott near the airport, the bar was jammed with stranded passengers and stranded flight crews and airport personnel, but frankly, most didn't seem to mind. Most, but not all. This gentleman, a TV sports producer, was on his way to a college basketball game.
If not, it's going to go on without me. Al McGuire will survive.
It's annoying. We were hoping to get back to St. Louis. We're with the Air Force. We needed to get back, really.
But for most of the rest, it was party time.
It's their party!
They are obviously not people with their cars parked on district streets. Digging out after this one is not going to be easy, as some would-be motorists have already discovered. As for the skiing, if you have them, wear them. It's still the best way to see the city on the quietest Friday night here in recent memory. But again, the best advice tonight and probably for much of tomorrow remains the same. If you don't have to drive, don't. Stay home, relax, and cross your fingers that by Monday, the situation will improve. David, Renee, back to you.
Thank you, Jack.
Stay home and be grateful that you don't have to be a reporter out in the snow. News 7 sent its reporters all around the Washington area today to find out how people were dealing with the snowstorm. News 7's Lark McCarthy tells us what they found.
Snow became the power broker today in the nation's capital, deciding who and what would move. The heavy artillery was out, but the plows and salt trucks were fighting a losing battle.
The salt cannot melt, could not melt the snow as fast as it was falling.
Federal workers who made it to the job found mostly empty offices. And as the storm got worse, those offices were closed. One union charged that lives were endangered having workers come in the first place. But the government said morning conditions weren't that bad. One worker took the snow in stride.
Once every 10 years, you get a chance to ski to work in Washington.
Metro struggled through most of the day to provide service.
May I have your attention, please? Rail service is being provided on the basis of available manpower and equipment capability.
Even buses got stuck, and those that could move often got trapped by abandoned cars.
I understand the bus in the district was just as bad as it is here. It's sort of non-existent.
At 8 tonight, Metro Rail was halted, and only 9 out of 120 bus routes operated this evening. National, Dulles, and BW. Emergency services could not close down, like this emergency room at the Washington Hospital Center. Personnel who made it in were forced to work double and triple duty. Laverne Hammonds had to get her sick mother here. She took a cab, bus, hitchhiked, and finally walked.
Yeah, I went through all this just to get my mother here. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't be out here in this weather. It is rough.
And the homeless sought shelter.
Fortunate to have a place like this to go because, you know, I read about people dying of exposure and everything, and you never think it could happen to you.
There is something very
extending up through much of Montgomery County and through the metro area. We might have a dusting of light snow from this system, but the storm that dumped us 17 to 28 inches is gone out to sea, and by tomorrow we'll get some sunshine, the roads will begin to improve, and some kids were calling in to ask if there'll be school on Monday, and I'll bet that there will be, because we're going to have some thawing temperatures by then. Renee?
The roads can only improve. Area fire departments are asking all residents to clear the snow away from fire hydrants, and police in some jurisdictions are restricting travel to essential services such as doctors, road crews, or emergency workers. Police warn that any cars parked along snow emergency routes will be towed away. Most activities scheduled for tomorrow are canceled anyway. Even the Smithsonian will be shut down, so you should check to make sure your plans have not been canceled before heading out the door. Also, hospitals are still in urgent need of four-wheel drive vehicles to bring in relief for their overworked staffs.
Coming up next on News 7 Update, wholesale prices take a record tumble, and Israeli Defense Minister Sharon says he'll step down, but there's a catch.
Also, the bizarre case of the kidnapped multi-million-dollar racehorse grows more puzzling. We'll be right back. It's been a long day. But it's over now, right?
What a storm. Just incredible. Very unusual for us to have this kind of a snowfall in Washington, Renee. We've been talking about how unusual. Well, the storm stacks up at Washington National, one of the places that had the least amount of snow at 17 inches compared with the 29 at Germantown and the 31 out at Front Royal. But even with that 17-inch snowfall, it still was the third heaviest on record, and the records go back over 100 years, by the way. And the snowfall was exceeded in this storm only by the Knickerbocker storm in January of 1922, and also by the big heavy snowstorm here that dumped up to 28 inches. Very similar to this storm, actually. It was just about 2 inches more at National Airport back in February 1979. So we're in third place in the last 100 years, and you can see there were many amounts. 30 inches at Culpeper, 23 at Baltimore and Dulles, 22 inches fell up at Harrisburg, and Philadelphia has 20 inches on the ground right now that had more than what we had in the downtown Washington area. There was also thunder and lightning with the storm caused by the very warm, moist air coming in off the ocean and clashing right with the cold air that we had over us. Right now at National Airport, it's quite cold with north winds, 22 degrees out there. Still periods of light snow in the area, but little or no accumulation, perhaps a dusting on top of what we already have. North winds at 17, making it feel more like 0 outside, and the barometer's 30.13, and it is rising. And taking a look at some of the temperatures right now, they don't look too much different than the snowfall numbers in a lot of places. Temperature 20 down at Fredericksburg, dropped to 14 already at Rockville, though, 21 out at Dulles and 20 up at Baltimore. Okay, on the satellite picture today, we'll go through the series of pictures as you'll see the storm that gradually shifts up and begins to shift its energy off the coast. Big area of clouds trying to come up from the Gulf of Mexico. A soaking rain for Florida will come out of this storm. and it looks like a very poor weekend to go to Florida. I know it's Lincoln's birthday tomorrow, and a lot of people want to go. They're going to be on those planes tomorrow morning out of Nashville as soon as they get the runway plowed, but it's going to be a soaking rain for Florida over the weekend. Meanwhile, the snow area still extends back into Pennsylvania, but that's going to move out pretty quickly, and the temperature is really not all that cold back here. In fact, going on and taking a look at our extended outlook, we are going to have some milder temperatures. We'll look at that in more detail in a minute. Here's the way my forecast shapes up for tonight. Basically, we're talking about a little bit of light snow, and you see it outside right now on Connecticut Avenue. The lows ranging from 12 in the colder spots to about 20 downtown, and the wind chill making it feel more like 0. The driving, of course, it goes without saying, it's just ridiculously bad. But tomorrow, with the sun coming out and the temperature cracking the freezing mark in many places, I think the roads will really improve by afternoon. Many places, especially where they get to work on them a little bit. And then taking on a look at the extended outlook, I see lots of sunshine in there. The high temperatures fighting with the snow cover to creep up close to 50 degrees on Tuesday. So, David, we're going to have a lot of slush around, it looks like, in a few days.
One other snow-related incident or series of incidents reported by D.C. police. Several people have been arrested for looting stores along Martin Luther King Avenue and South Capitol Street. Police say these have been only isolated incidents, describing the crimes as smash-and-grab affairs. Coming up on News 7, we'll show you some people who find bright spots no matter how dreary the day.
We'll be right back.
A father-daughter team in Fairfax today showed the proper spirit. Woodson High School student Tracy Katz discovered that Lee Wood Nursing Home was having trouble getting its workers through the snow, so she enlisted the help of her father, Morty Katz, and his four-wheel drive vehicle to bring in the kitchen help and nurses. But when Tracy discovered that the home was still running short-handed, she then rounded up 12 of her friends who are now spending the night there, shoveling the snow, feeding and caring for the 176 residents.
Lots of stories like that today. News 7's Ed Turney is always in search of the positive side to any story, and today he began his journey downtown D.C.
I got here early at the Ellipse for the Winter Carnival. Canceled due to snow. Meteorologists like News 7's Gary Shore had been predicting this storm. And still, some of us headed out, figuring we could overcome the forecast, not to mention the elements.
What am I doing here, right?
Yes.
I don't know.
Moments of frustration. And one man seemed to sum it up for all of us.
You can find a way to get there, which is the crucial question for everybody. That's our news for now.
He's right. He's right. It stinks. But anyway, enjoy it if you can. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday. Good night.
Good night.
Subway trains on the above-ground portions of their runs. A few power interruptions were reported in northern Virginia and in the Bowie area, but electricity seemed to be one of the few things moving during this day.
Gary Shore has been tracking this storm for several days, and he is standing by to tell us if the worst is over. Gary?
Well, it looks to me like the worst of the storm is over, Renee, but we still have heavy snow in the Washington area. Let's take a look at our radar right now, and I want to show you a look at the radar. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the snow so far that has fallen in the Washington area. Okay, now this is not only the Washington area, but all through Virginia and Maryland, an incredibly heavy snowstorm. And right here in the District of Columbia, it looks like it's going to be just about a virtual tie for the second heaviest snowfall in a 24-hour period this century. Now, right now, you're looking at the radar picture. This is the live picture from our own radar here at Channel 7, and you can see a large green area there centered right around Washington. This is all heavy snowfall right now, and the green is all heavy. The blue is light to moderate snow, but some of that may even be heavy because you can't see all the snow because it's so heavy around the District of Columbia and the suburbs. It's falling at a rate of 1 to 3 inches per hour right now, and that heavy snow will gradually shift on up further to the north and east during the next few hours. And I'd say after about 9, 10 o'clock tonight, it looks as though we'll be able to see the snow begin to diminish, and then after midnight the snow will gradually taper off. I don't think there'll be too much more accumulation after about midnight, 1 or 2 in the morning. And finally, tomorrow the storm will be over and the sun will come out tomorrow, Renee, but not until after the second worst 24-hour snowfall in Washington's records this century. And there is 29 inches of snow on the ground right now in northern Montgomery County, Renee, ranging to as little as only about 15 or 16 inches down towards Fredericksburg and in parts of the district. Just an unbelievable storm, and another 3 to 6 inches before it's over most places.
Thank you, Gary. Federal and district government workers were told to come to work today, and those who did were sent home almost as soon as they arrived. That angered AAA and union officials who say they never should have been brought in the first place. Most workers stayed home anyway. News 7's John Spiropoulos says that's a good idea.
They salted and salted the streets all over town, and they plowed, but the snow kept coming down. Some crews worked 24 hours to clear the way, but the streets were blocked despite all the overtime pay.
The salt could not melt the snow as fast as it was falling. So there was a point where you stopped melting and you had to wait a little bit and let the snow be there before you could plow it. And once you started a plowing action, it was a continuous action.
You really had too much to handle.
Yes, it was too much snow to be plowable. This type of storms you have to accept as a force of nature that you really cannot economically overcome.
The blizzard swirled among downtown buildings. It was a blinding storm. Nevertheless, many made their way to work. Some by metro, which was crowded and late, but running. At least one commuter was oblivious to conditions. Others were as prepared as you could be for the blizzard of '83.
Once every 10 years, you get a chance to ski to work in Washington.
The federal government announced a liberal leave policy early in the morning, so most offices were virtually empty. One federal union criticized the policy, charging that the lives of federal workers were placed in danger by the request that they go to work. But the government says conditions weren't all that bad early this morning.
We took a look at the situation, say, between 4:30 and 5 o'clock this morning. And that time we only had a couple of inches of snow on the ground. Roads weren't all that bad, and there was a pretty good prospect of getting through the rush hour in fairly good shape. And as it turned out, we did.
But about 10:30 in the morning, officials decided to send workers home early because the storm was worsening and because Metro said it might not be operating by the evening rush hour. The Snow Control Center says don't drive anywhere tonight unless you absolutely have to. As for the side streets, the Snow Control Center says it won't even start clearing them until late tomorrow morning at the earliest. In Northwest, John Spiropoulos, News 7.
Air traffic into and out of the area stopped completely by mid-morning, and it's not going to start again until tomorrow sometime. Hundreds of flights have been canceled at Dulles, at BWI, and at national airports. Kathleen Matthews has been at National all day, and she is standing by there in the snow with a live report. Kathy.
David, on a normal day, there are 900 takeoffs and landings here at National Airport. Today, there were fewer than 50. The airport was open for 2 hours between 7 and 9 o'clock. At that point, 8 FAA officials decided that they would shut down the airport temporarily in order to clear the runways. But after several hours, they realized that would be an impossible job because the snow was falling so fast and so hard. And so they decided to cancel all flights for the rest of the day. Now that left hundreds of passengers stranded. Some people were able to get accommodations overnight at local hotels, others were not.
Hotel, couldn't get in, and we have a 7 o'clock flight out in the morning.
All the major hotels around both National and Dulles are full, and so some passengers plan to spend the night here. It doesn't sound very pleasant, but inside is a lot cozier than outside, where the drifts have piled up several feet. The roads into National Airport are almost impassable, and snow removal crews that were clearing runways earlier today have given up until the blizzard is over. Even if the field is cleared by tomorrow morning, passengers are not guaranteed a flight out.
It's all standby, everything. If they can't get us out tomorrow, then we'll stand by for the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day.
Now, ticket counter personnel, airline personnel have been asked to work a second shift because people who were supposed to relieve them this afternoon weren't even able to get to the airport. I was told at Dulles it's pretty much the same story. Snow removal crews just abandoned clearing the runways midday. They're going to resume, they hope, tonight about midnight when they think the blizzard will be tapering down and coming to an end. David, Renee?
There are days, Kathy, when Renee and I miss being reporters in the field. This is not one of those days. Thank you. Well, about the only transportation that kept running today was Amtrak. Some Metro liners to New York did have to be combined with other trains, but no major delays were reported. The bus companies did not fare quite as well. Greyhound buses were forced to stop running, and officials won't say when they'll start again, at least not until the roads get better, certainly. And it is the same story with Trailways. Renee?
Metro officials say they are shutting down the subway system at 8 o'clock tonight. Until then, Metro is only running those sections of the subway that run underground. Bus service is spotty at best at this hour. Drivers are being hampered by stalled cars all along the major routes. News 7's Penny Mickleberry has a report.
Metro began the day optimistically. There were only 4 to 6 inches of snow on the ground, and traffic was moving smoothly, partly because many area workers decided to stay at home.
But by mid-morning, Metro officials knew they had a serious problem. The snow was getting heavier, which meant the trains were having a hard time maneuvering the snow-covered tracks, and buses were having an even harder time with the snow-covered surface roads. By mid-afternoon, it was just a matter of time.
May I have your attention, please? Rail service is being provided on the basis of available manpower and equipment capability.
Train and bus riders were warned every 15 minutes that continued service depended on the weather and that the best idea would be to go home and stay there. Ironically, people trying to get home were largely responsible for interrupted or delayed bus service. Traffic was stalled for blocks on many major arteries, making it virtually impossible for buses to get through. And of course, the blowing and drifting snow just made things worse. All those factors combined to create a nightmarish rush hour at noon. Commuters and travelers complained of 2 to 3 hour waits for buses.
Went into work, got there about an hour and a half late, and when they let us out at 11:30, started home.
And I decided to take the Metro and get off here. Usually I take the bus, but I understand the bus in the district was just as bad as it is here. It's sort of non-existent.
Metro officials said there was nothing they could do about the bus problem, but they promised to keep the trains running as long as possible. Only one train line was reported closed for a while. There was an electrical problem between Pentagon City and National Airport. Metro officials warned that riders would not get much notice if or when rail service is cut. A spokeswoman told News 7, if it becomes a safety problem, we'll just shut it down. So at this hour, Metro's biggest problem is bus service bottlenecks, a problem it did not create and one it can't solve. In the district, Penny Mickleberry, News 7.
Maryland's Governor Hughes has authorized the National Guard to use its emergency vehicles to help hospitals. All area hospitals are appealing to those with four-wheel drive cars and trucks to volunteer their services to help keep emergency rooms and other services running. News 7's Andy Field looks at how those who save lives are coping with the storm.
Eileen Munius was the calm in the eye of today's storm.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Hi, we're going to be...
While emergency crews spun their patients through drifts and jams, she worked around the clock at Washington's Hospital Center. The storm stranded a lot of hospital workers, so Eileen was doing double and triple duty.
I really don't mind it. There really is no other choice. If no one else can get in, this is what we have to do, and there have to be people here. The emergency room isn't able to close ever.
It's really been a struggle, but I think everybody's been making a concerted effort.
The hospitals are still asking for four-wheel drive volunteers to help emergency crews get to work. If you can help, call your nearest hospital. Many desperately ill patients had a terrible time getting through today. Ambulances had to maneuver through frustrating, clogged roads. Laverne Hammonds hitchhiked, bussed, cabbed, and literally walked her mother to the hospital emergency room.
Yeah, I went through all this just to get my mother here. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't be out here in this weather. It is rough.
The paralyzing blizzard was bad enough for folks who had to get to work. It was a nightmare for these firefighters. DC's engine company number 10 is the busiest in the district. These men trudged out to 5 separate calls this morning. The snow and traffic made it nearly impossible getting to folks who needed the help. One truck couldn't get through an unplowed street.
We had to actually park at the corner. It was a medical emergency for a heart attack, and we had to park at the corner and walk down about a half of a block to get in to help the ambulance get the people out.
The men who usually live on the streets found plenty of warm refuge in one of the district's 12 shelters for the homeless. The Council of Churches opened their shelter bedrooms and kitchens for anyone without a home today.
Fortunate to have a place like this to go because, I read about people dying of exposure and everything, and you never think it could happen to you.
If you have no place for shelter tonight, get in touch with the police or your local emergency government office. The shelter agencies won't leave any of these men out in the cold tonight. No matter how bad the weather is, emergency crews and emergency shelters can't turn their backs on the people who need the help. Today, the lifesavers proved once again that they will put up with the most crippling conditions to save a person's life. In Northwest, this is Andy Field, News 7.
The storm caused some interruptions in electric service. About 2,700 people served by VEPCO lost power for several hours. That was mainly around Sterling Park, Tyson's Corner, and McLean. Others served by Baltimore Gas and Electric also lost power for several hours near Bowie. C&P Telephone reported overloaded circuits, and officials are asking that you not make calls unless it is absolutely necessary.
Well, coming up on News 7, we'll be having live reports from the Virginia and Maryland suburbs on today's storm.
And Alan Eustace has another look at conditions in the district. We'll be right back.
Well, of course, the snow was just as bad in Maryland as it was elsewhere in the Washington area. Snow plows, sand trucks have patrolled roads in the suburbs, but it has fallen so fast and drifted so high that it has been hard for the officials and road crews to keep up. News 7's Mary Kroenke spent the day in suburban Maryland and is standing by now with the live report from Silver Spring. Mary?
David, it's actually very pretty out here. I'm sure this is just what you hoped for Christmas, but for Valentine's Day, I doubt it very much. It's very quiet in the suburbs tonight because nothing is moving, especially in the residential areas. There have been no plows through here, and as you can see, those cars over there are buried up to their fenders all the way up to the trunk on many of them, and it's going to take a long time to get those dug out, and that's when the real adventure begins. Once you get out on the roads that have been partially cleared, some of the more major roads this way, many of which right now are absolutely impassable. But here's how it looked earlier today when we tried to make it through. The going all day has been toughest on hills, impossible on some hills. Many cars could not make it up even moderate inclines without a very hefty push. There is so much snow, even heavy buses and trucks are getting stuck. It's not so much the slickness of the street, but the depth of the snow that's the problem for everybody. The snow is sticking so quickly, many drivers who could make it had to stop in the middle of the street to clear their windshields. Late this afternoon, there were at least as many people walking in the streets as driving. The snow is so deep, the only place you can walk is in the street. Where are they walking? Many to the grocery store. This store was swamped all day, but people are able to buy only what they are able to carry.
Well, they're buying just about everything they need, and they can carry, especially like your meats, your breads, milk, snacks. lunch meat, you know, anything they can get their hands on, really, that they can carry.
The grocery store closed early like everything else did. Most businesses really suffered today. This Wheaton bar is usually packed on Friday afternoons. Not today. They closed early also. Prince George's County Police and State Police are telling stranded motorists to get out of their cars, try to get their cars off as far as they can, then get out of them and call for help, or go to the some nearby shelter, because it can be dangerous to stay in your car. It's very cold out here, and also there's the danger of asphyxiation if you do stay in your car. We've been measuring snow all day. Started out this morning at 8 o'clock with 5 inches of snow. Right now this ruler is 18 inches long. As you can see, it's all the way to the top of it. So we've got about 18 inches out here, I'd say, give or take an inch or two. Renee?
Mary should have brought a larger ruler.
I'm afraid. I was afraid to do that. If I would have brought a yardstick, it probably would have topped that.
You can just use her from now on.
Try and stay warm. Thank you, Mary. Most area entertainment events have been canceled tonight. All performances at the Kennedy Center have been postponed, as have those at the Folger Theater and Arena Stage. And if you had tickets for the Caps game at the Cap Center, forget it. They won't be playing tonight. There will not be any athletic activities going on at Montgomery County Schools tonight. The show won't go on at the Warner Theater either, where they will be honoring tickets for tonight's show at special added performances on Sunday and Monday. But if your heart is really set on going out tonight, the Hi-Fi and Video show at the Washington Convention Center will go on as scheduled tonight until 10 o'clock.
I pass. The Prince William County Red Cross is opening an emergency shelter at a fire station to help travelers stranded along I-95. The shelter is at the Botts Fire Station at Occoquan Road and F Street in downtown Woodbridge. Well, News 7's Jim Clark has been checking on conditions in Northern Virginia all day, and you can always tell a veteran reporter, can't you? In out of the cold. Mr. Clark, but what have you seen in your travels today?
David, you got me dead to rights. The innkeeper here at the Holiday Inn in Springfield, Virginia, has kindly allowed us to let it snow in so we can try to let you see what it is doing outside, and it is continuing to snow very hard. We're about 10 stories up here overlooking the southbound lanes of I-95 and the exit onto Franconia Road. Both deserted except for an occasional fire or rescue vehicle or a snowplow. Now, I can confirm, yes, Virginia, this area has been blanketed in 10 to 15 inches of snow, as forecast by our own Gary Shore. The snowfall that has paralyzed the region hit with a real fury today, as we discovered earlier when we toured several major roads in a four-wheel drive truck. Snowplows were simply unable to keep up with the heavy snowfall as blizzard-like conditions moved into the area shortly after 10. While the interstates were still passable, many of their exits were not, like this one at Duke Street, just south of the big landmark shopping center. More than a dozen cars and trucks were stalled here shortly after 10, unable to make it up the ramp to Duke Street. One of the stranded motorists told me his car had been hit by another whose driver didn't even stop to see if he'd been injured. The state policeman trying to unsnarl the tie-up summed up driving conditions throughout Northern Virginia.
At least this bad and worse.
Some who had managed to make it from their homes soon gave up and joined a steadily building congregation at Pam's Donut Shop in Annandale.
This is the kind of days I like to travel because there's not so many other darn fools on the road.
On my way back home, I gave it up for the day. I got tired slopping at the public trough, so I'm going to go home and exercise my liberal leave policy.
Now at this hour, motorists stranded on the interstate highways in Virginia are being urged by state police to go to the nearest temporary shelter, to get there by foot. We would advise as well that you travel in the direction of oncoming cars, because cars coming toward you at night, visibility very bad, they're going to have a difficult time seeing you. Finally, David and Renee, from this vantage point, I would say there were really only two ways of getting home today, and by far the best way was to simply stay there in the first place. Back to you.
Thank you, Jim. Stay warm.
You will.
I know you will. In the district, the snow has begun to taper off, but road conditions are still terrible. Alan Eustace has spent much of his day on Connecticut Avenue, and he is there again with an update. Alan?
The day is ending here on Connecticut Avenue, much as it started when I was here 12 hours ago. There's a little bit more snow. There are just about as many cars, which is very few. And there are a few more skiers than there were early this morning. Of course, the reason being the larger amount of snow. There are a few more snow shovelers, too. At this point, the snowstorm is a pretty storm, but probably by tomorrow morning, along this street, as many others in Washington, D.C., it'll be a bit ugly when it comes time to shovel it all away. And so things here are about what they were 12 hours ago, and the snow keeps coming.
What do you say? Let's take a vote. He wins the Chapeau Award.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. The hat is marvelous. We'll bring him in from the cold soon.
Well, there is some other news today, including a proposal to delay D.C.'s new insurance law.
And we'll meet the ultimate superwoman coming up. Storm. Gary?
Let me show you what's been happening with our radar over the last several hours. This is the radar motion early in the afternoon. Notice moisture spread up, and then it turns and starts to come back the other way. And look at the live radar. There is still some heavy snow around the Washington metropolitan area, but the area has shrunk somewhat. And although the snow hasn't ended here, actually the reason it looks like it's ended is because the snow is so heavy right in the district right now that it's blocking us from seeing what's further out. The radome right now is getting covered with snow up on the tower. But there is still snow out here, but it is letting up. And it looks as though, even though during the last hour Dulles had 3 additional inches of snow, places further out in West Virginia are reporting the snow beginning to let up. It's ended at Charlottesville now, not too far southwest of us. So it's going to gradually taper off starting in a couple of hours, and by midnight, basically, the accumulation should be over, David.
All right, thank you,
Easy for him to say, isn't it?
So we still got a few more inches of accumulation before it's all over.
Probably just a few here in the district. To the north and east, though, Renee, there's going to be even a little bit more than that, because that's the way the storm is headed out. Let's take a look at some of the snowfall amounts in the metropolitan area. We've been busy checking with the weather observers during the last couple of hours, and they've been updating us. And just during the last hour alone, out at Dulles, they had 3 inches of new snow and now have a total of 22 on the ground, 16 officially now at National Airport, 29 reported by several folks, 27 to 29 inches in northern Montgomery County. And you can also see 18 inches down in southern Prince George's, but notice down at La Plata, they had 11 inches of snow down there. And also, you can see there's 19 inches up at Baltimore, and they have 21 inches in the sections over around Shadyside on the Chesapeake Bay. Let's look at the radar action during the last few hours. Notice how at first the stuff comes up this way. This is the heavy snow. Then it turns and starts to move back. And just for the last few time steps there, and that is speeded up very rapidly. Actually, on that picture you're looking at, 1 second was equal to about 20 minutes. So first the moisture came in off the ocean, but now it's turning. The area of snow is beginning to shrink, and although there's still some moderate to heavy snow in the Washington area, it's gradually going to be shifting onto the east, and the snow is letting up out to the west of us. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look right now at the current conditions outside at National Airport. And we have 19 degrees, 84% humidity. The winds are northwest at 20 miles an hour, and the barometer is 30.04 inches of mercury, and it is rising. Take a look at the temperatures around the area now. They look rather similar to the snowfall amounts in many places. 17 degrees now at Fredericksburg, 19 degrees over at Dulles, 16 now up at Winchester. And by the way, the heaviest snow from the storm has been an area of around 30 inches reported between Strasburg and Front Royal, right up along the Blue Ridge, because as the Atlantic moisture came in from the storm, it was lifted up over the mountains, and that's why they got the heaviest of all right in there, although some sections of northern Montgomery, where it's not over, will probably equal that 30-inch amount. Okay, taking a look at my weather map right now, we can see what caused this big storm system. As it moved up the Atlantic seaboard, well, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take a look at that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the satellite picture first, because we do have the storm through the day shifting on up to the northeast. You can see the thicker clouds gradually edge their way up, and that's taking the heavy snow on out of the picture. There is another storm down here in the western Gulf we'll have to watch, but it looks like that'll just bring us some clouds, and most of the storm's energy is probably going to shift off the coast, because I think this one that we just got through was the really powerful one. Okay, here's my forecast for tonight, the way it shapes up. The snow still heavy at times for a couple more hours, and then I expect we'll see just about after midnight the snow finally ending across the area. It's certainly one of the heaviest snowstorms that we've seen in Washington this century. Actually, it'll be number 2 for the 24-hour snowfall amount this century. And then for tomorrow, partly sunny and milder. The temperature is getting up to 30 to 35 degrees. So the total snow accumulations ranging from about 14 to 12 inches down around La Plata, to as much as 30 inches. That much of a difference just across our metropolitan area, Renee. A tremendous storm. In the extended outlook, you can see the highs will be warming up. 40 Sunday, 45 Monday, then 50 on Tuesday. So we really are going to see things warming up, and I think a lot of the snow is going to start to melt and compact. Of course, it's just going to be ridiculous to try and travel anywhere this evening, Renee, but by tomorrow afternoon, I think the roads, if they get out there and with the plows and a little salt and the sun will get to work, I think things will be improving tomorrow.
Well, that's good. How's your voice? It sounds like you're about to lose that.
I haven't slept in about 2 days now.
Just so excited about the storm, right?
Well, it's just, you know, there's always more information to look at with these things. You're always trying to figure it out and get a jump on exactly what it's going to do, but Mother Nature just is always one step. She never gives you all the answers.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're staying up and keeping us on top of things. David?
Coming up on News 7, the snowstorm not according to Gary Shore, but according to Ed Turney. We'll be right back.
And finally tonight, the snowstorm may have snarled traffic, stranded travelers, and closed offices and stores, but there was a good side. News 7's Ed Turney says it just depends on how you look at it.
A tourist in town, are you? Well, you pretty much had free reign of the museums early this morning. However, there was no one at the kiosk to answer any of your questions. And if you headed across from the White House, where they covered 5 acres of the ellipse with man-made snow yesterday, it was tough to find unless you knew right where it was.
I got here early at the ellipse for the Winter Carnival. Canceled due to snow.
Meteorologists like News 7's Gary Shore had been predicting this storm. Well, last night, here's what he said.
And I think the most likely accumulation for Washington will be 8 to 14 inches. This will be the area of heavy snow that'll track up in here tomorrow morning, right around the rush hour. The heaviest snow will arrive.
And still, some of us headed out, figuring we could overcome the forecast, not to mention the elements.
Where in the world are you going?
Well, I'm going home. I came into work today.
Why did you come into work?
I thought everybody else in my office would come in also.
Today?
No.
I'm going to work because they said to come.
Why are you going to work?
Because I'm important.
Excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question? It's too cold. He's too cold.
When are you going to close up and go home?
Well, I don't know. I'd be glad to go home. But
Tell your boss I said you could go home.
Tell the boss you said I could go home?
What am I doing here, right?
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm sure many people wondered why they were where they were today. Some abandoned their cars. Others didn't seem too happy about shopping. Not everyone was unhappy, of course. Why, some people were tickled to death to see our camera anyway.
Oh, we're on TV. Oh, God, I'm telling you.
Mickey, smile.
I'm sure many of you got out and really enjoyed yourselves today, but some of us had to go out. And there were moments of frustration.
Keep on moving.
And one man seemed to sum it up for all of us.
This stinks.
Okay.
Thanks, this stinks. Take it easy now.
Officials at the Winter Festival do want a chance to take advantage of all the snow, so they say they will try. They will try to open tomorrow. They'll see how the weather goes tonight before making any decision.
How can a winter festival be snowed out? That does not make sense. We are a better stock than that. Come on. Well, throughout the evening, we're going to keep you updated on the weather situation, and of course, we will all be back at 11 for a complete report on the news, weather, and sports. But now, for Renee and Gary and Tim and the entire News 7 staff, I'm David Shoemaker. Have a good evening. We'll see you later.
Tonight at 7:30 on Entertainment Tonight, Cheryl Ladd speaks frankly about the Princess Grace story, and